With graphics like that, this guy must work out. Afternoon, everyone. Coming to you from the shop. I thought I would go over some sanders that I use, kind of some different applications that you can use them for. So I hope this is informative, kind of helps you out if you're looking at getting into the trade, or if you've got a project at home that you're needing a specific sander for. This might help you kind of identify what one to get. So I'll go over the ones that I use most often. So most often used is a DeWalt palm sander. This is just an older version of this one here. So they've kind of advanced or changed the way that you strap the paper on. There's just one thumb here. You can loosen the paper, and then on the back you can undo these to loosen the back of the paper, whereas the old design was a little more difficult to get it to come off. It had two different bars that you had to use. So the new design's a lot better. I keep this in my truck just doing small sanding work. So if you're trying to refinish the surface on something, or pretty much any light sanding work, this is an excellent all-around sander to have. Other manufacturers make it. This is just the one that I use. So the model number on this one, DEW6411, takes the quarter sheet of paper, has the dust catch on the back. Don't believe this one does have, I don't think it does have a light. Off and on switch is up here up front. Works really good for stuff like that. Just a good all-around sander. Next one over is a belt sander. This is a small version. They make much larger versions of this. I use this for detailed work. So if you're doing some stain grade wood, the thing you got to watch out for with some of these sanders, the sander is actually moving this way. So if you don't watch it, you'll have swirly marks in your wood, and it'll come out whenever you stain it. So I've had that problem in the past. This sander here, the paper runs one direction. So if you're doing any detailed work where you don't want any marks in your wood, you're staining it more or less. Any kind of stain grade, you want to get a belt sander. So I bought this one specifically for doing a flooring job. You can tell it's still got some clear on the sandpaper itself. This is a rigid version. That's the way you loosen it up, and then you can slide the paper off. Slides off and on. Really good sander. I don't use it a whole lot because there's not a whole lot of wood flooring that I repair. But any stain grade cabinetry work or woodworking that I do, this is the sander that I'll go to. And this is one of the few that I know of that you don't have to worry about any swirly sand marks in your wood. Does have a dust catcher on it. I don't use that very often. And let's see, model number on this. Here's your model number. It does come with a carrying case, and I think several spare sheets of sandpaper. So this is still the free sandpaper. I don't think I've actually bought any for this. But for intricate work, works really good. You've got a speed adjustment here. You can adjust the speed faster or slower. Really good for intricate work that you're doing that you don't want any imperfections in your wood. Next one over is a nice little sander. This is a Black & Decker, kind of a multi-sander. They make several versions of this. This one's quite old, but it's got all kinds of little adapters, different settings on it. It's got a little tip on there, so if you're doing work where you're sanding like a baby bed that has all those spindles, this helps in getting in those surfaces. One thing I will say about this, and I've learned this the hard way, this sander does go in rotating patterns. So if you do it on something that's stain grade, you're you're going to have to go back over it with something like this or hand sand it to get all those swirl marks out. So be careful with that. Other than that, if you're doing any kind of paint grade work where you're just going to paint it, you're not staining it, this is a good sander. Comes with multiple different types of sandpaper. This one actually has multiple settings on the front, so it's kind of a good one if you're just a home repairman and do stuff yourself. This is a really good sander for just general use. And I think I bought it for doing some intricate sanding where I needed to be able to get in with something like this, and I was taking off years and years of paint. I didn't want to do it by hand, but just know with this, it could possibly leave some swirl marks that you'll need to take out before you go to staining it. You'll need to use something like this or sandpaper with your hand. Next one over is the multi-tool, and I've got several of these multi-tools. This one happens to be a Rockwell, but the multi-tools, most of them come with multiple heads, and it even comes with a head that you can put on it to sand with. So you can put this adapter, take the blade off and stick this on there, and then you can stick your sandpaper directly to this and go to work sanding with your multi-tool. So literally the multi-tool will do just about anything. This works really well for small intricate sanding because it is a triangular piece of sandpaper, so it'll work with getting in spindles, little small spots where you can't get, you sure can't get this and you can't get a palm sander. But it's also one, I call it an oscillating tool, but it's really a multi-tool. You know, it's going to leave those swirly sand marks. So realize that up front. If you use this, you can't use it for your finishing sanding if you're doing stain grade work, because it will leave some swirl marks in your wood. You'll need to go back over it with something. This has a dust port on it. This was actually for a guy that used to work for me. Had this in his toolkit. This is the version of this. I've got a Craftsman and a DeWalt version. This is just a Rockwell version. I think even Dremel makes a version of this tool. But these are the sanders I've got that I use. All of them are electric. They make some pneumatic sanders, but I don't use those for the kind of work I do. If you only got a choice to get one, I would say a palm sander is probably the most practical. It's easy to find paper for them. Some of these others can be difficult depending on where you're at to find paper for those. But a palm sander is probably the most ideal for just about anything you would do. Hope this helps. Let me know if you got any questions. Thanks.
This guy needs to be a poster child for birth control. If you like that video, hit subscribe.